Welcome to EME Transformation and Transparent Tuesday. My name is Alexis K, and of course I am your host on Tuesdays. And y'all know we like to let a little light in on Tuesday, because in order for us to come along in this sanctification process that God has us in, we've got to have some transparent conversations, and we got to be ready to transform. And y'all, look, I'm letting a little light in today in the natural realm of things. So I decided I was going to come outside and sit and give you all my Tuesday encouragement, because that's definitely something that helps my life, is being out in nature. I love the beach. I absolutely love a beautiful sunny day, and it really helps my mental. This month we've been talking about mental health, also bringing in the conversation of the blessings that come after a storm. And after a storm there's always beautiful sunshine, and we know that a little bit of nature is always good for your mental, especially when we're talking about how we are dealing with stress, how we're dealing with others, and absolutely the choices that we make from the way that we're feeling, how we're taking things in. So last week we kind of focused on the ladies, we focused on the mamas a little bit. We talked about mental health, and we talked about Hannah, Samuel's mom. But I wanted to bring into the conversation this Tuesday about men's mental health. I know that that's a little bit of a soft space for a lot of men, and women are still trying to understand the signs of a man who's in distress, or a man who's stressed out, or perhaps not necessarily taking in the world as well as they could be, especially because there's a big stigma on men to, of course, be strong and don't have a whole lot of feelings, and work it out in your own head and don't talk to anybody. But I really wanted to kind of shine a little light on that, and even show us in scripture how God does not shy away from mental health from even the male perspective of things. We have all heard the story of Jonah. Jonah is the dude who runs from God and ends up in the whale, and then something about a tree, and then this story goes on. But I kind of just wanted to kind of give you a little brief synopsis of Jonah, but take it from that mental health standpoint. So when we meet Jonah, we've got God giving him a word, and the beauty is that Jonah is indeed a believer, because Jonah says in verse 9, he says, when he's on the boat and they trying to figure out why the boat is having problems, he says, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." So he's a professing Christian. We talked last week about the fact that sometimes from the Christian standpoint of things, we should always be happy. We shouldn't necessarily be struggling. Don't be worrying. But that we're not exempt from those things either. And here it is that Jonah makes it very well known that he is a believer. But in chapter 1, that brother is going through fear. God tells him to go do something, and he's like, a little bit of fear and a whole lot of resistance. And his mental, it is not well in his soul in chapter 1, and he doesn't want to do it. So the way that he deals with the stress of what the Lord has says is that he runs and gets on a boat. Now, again, us good Christians know, where can you go that God can't find you? But here is already a moment where he's having some mental stress that he done plumb forgot that the Lord can see him wherever he is, and he responds by trying to run away. Oftentimes we talk about that when we're stressed out, we tend not to talk about things, we tend not to rationalize them out, but the first thing we do is what? We run. So then in chapter 2, he's stuck in the whale because the Lord done got him off the boat, people done threw him over, and so now he's in remorse, like he's going through some emotional things. He's using words in chapter 2 like distress, that when he cried out, the Lord answered him, that when things threatened him, he said, when it threatened me, and God, he says, my life is just ebbing away. He is giving out his feelings. And again, I'm thankful to see that in scripture, so that it helps all of us remember that even as it pertains to men, they have feelings, and the way in which they're dealing with things can definitely vary, just like a woman's emotions and the way that she's taking things in. It's a lot of the same. We are all human. We all have the same mountains and battles to work out. And you see a man, Jonah, who is having a moment. mean, he's having quite a few moments. We go to chapter 3, and he got his mind a little bit together, because he says, the Lord, you are God, and I'm gonna go. And he does go, and do. Oftentimes we see men kind of go through like a little emotional rut, and then, okay, they seem all right because they back to business. Well, look at Jonah. He went back to business after kind of going through his little emotional moment. But then we go to chapter 4, and Jonah is angry all over again. He's angry. He's having suicidal thoughts. He wants to die. He said, I would just rather die at this point. Now, mind you, this man has gone from a little bit of I ain't gonna do it, stubbornness, all the way down to distress. And then he goes to let me get it done. And then he goes back into being angry, and now he wants to die. And if I could say anything to the men as we talk about mental health for the rest of the month, I want you to know that God cares that you care. Oftentimes, again, there's a big stigma put on you all, but I want you all to know that even through scripture, you see that God does care, because not only does God acknowledge what's going on with Jonah, because he does talk to him, he engages with Jonah, even in the midst of his emotional, even kind of irrational behavior. And then God brings wisdom to the conversation. And you remember he asked him, well, is there really a reason for you to be angry? But God does care. So even when it seems like in this world, and often with women and children and your bosses, brothers, I want y'all to know that God does care about you caring, and that your mental health is very much so important. Keep checking in with yourself. How am I feeling? Even if you don't feel like it's the best feeling, or this might be too emotional, remember that there are men in scripture who have gone through their own ebbs and flows of emotions. Keep a rein on it. Pay attention to it. If you need to talk to somebody, Jonah talks to God about it. But if you need to go see a therapist, you need to go sit with your spiritual advisors, you need to go sit with some friends, please do so. Your mental is so important to how you continue to work out your gifts in this world, and even how you take care of your family. So my brothers, I hope that on this Tuesday that you hear me saying that God cares that you care, and your sisters, your mothers, your children, if they happen to miss you in your own distress, lay it to their mind, maybe even their ignorance, but don't lay it to their heart. And if you got to bring it out, bring it out. And I love y'all. I'll see y'all soon. God bless.